First, live, local. This is Fox 12 Now.
Hello, everyone. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now. Appreciate you joining us wherever you are. You found us. So whether that's on YouTube Live or our apps, we are here every weekday at 1 p.m. bringing you some really interesting interviews, some deeper dives on segments, and sometimes we get to talk to former Blazers. That's what we're doing today. So if you're a Blazers fan, you already know who this next guest is. But if you are a wine aficionado, you may also know who he is. And on June 3rd at the Ahisdelsheim Vineyards, you can join him to celebrate the latest edition of his rosé from the Heritage McCollum 91 collection. And I'm talking about CJ McCollum, you know, the former Trailblazer, current New Orleans Pelican. We didn't get into that too much, but I want to play my interview with him. I got to sit down and talk with him for quite a bit this morning, so we're playing that for you now for the first time. Let's go ahead and go to it. CJ, thank you for being here. Really appreciate you taking some time to join us today. And you know, I'm sure you've said it a million times, but I have to start off with the origin story of how you became such a wine aficionado that you wanted to start your own line. Like, where did that all start from?
Yeah, it started with my wife introducing me to wine in college. She was my girlfriend at the time, and she introduced me to a Merlot that wasn't so great. And as we kind of progressed in our relationship, and as you know, I continued to pursue her and learn more about wine, I would later go on to be drafted by the Portland Trailblazers and be introduced to the world of different wines, if you will, in the Willamette Valley, with some of the great soil we have out there, some of the great vineyards we have out there. And it's funny because my rookie year, I ate at ringside after most games. They had a great happy hour, and they probably still do to this day. And the bartender's name was James, and James is from Cleveland. And I asked James, I said, what Pinot Noir would you recommend? I've never had an Oregon Pinot before. I'd like to learn more about it. My girlfriend's going to be coming to visit, and I want to be able to take her to some different places and explore. And he ends up giving me a Walter Scott Pinot Noir, and the rest is history, because I began to learn more about the fact that Oregon is known for Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. I ended up going to Walter Scott, meeting Ken and Erica, and began to explore vineyards and tastings. And you fast forward a little bit more, I ended up partnering with Ahisdelsheim in 2017, ended up buying fruit in 2018, and then putting out my first iteration of McCollum Heritage 91, which was a Pinot Noir in 2020.
So that's a big step going from there, from going out, you know, a typical Oregon thing. You know, you move to Oregon, go do some wine tasting, which is a lot of people end up doing that, but finding that much of an interest. So when you were trying these different wines, which one stood out to you the most that you ended up liking the most?
Well, it started with the Bryant Creek. It started with the Pinot Noir from Bryant Creek in partnership with Ahisdelsheim that I was attracted to the most, and that's the first wine that I ended up putting out in 2020. It was in 2018 that we grew on their estate. And for me, it was about finding a taste that had balance, that had elegance, that had hints of fruit, but was smooth with higher acidity. And for people who, you know, feel like wine is very unapproachable at times, just relate higher acidity to the fact that your mouth waters. When it's higher acidity, your mouth normally waters. When your mouth doesn't water, that means it's lower or medium acidity. And I just kind of started learning the basics, and I asked them to teach me from an educational standpoint, tasting through wines with the Som, tasting through wines with Gina, the winemaker, and I wanted to learn more about the business of wine. And went through a long process, and I'm still going through a long process now about learning and strategically trying to figure out ways to improve my knowledge and understanding of the business and of Oregon wine in general and wine outside of Oregon.
So when you decided to purchase your own land to start your own vineyard, what were some of the factors that you were looking for that? Because I know there's a lot of variations in soil and you know, so many different things. Clearly, you are far more knowledgeable in wine than I am. But what were the factors you looked for when purchasing your vineyard?
You know, I looked at location first. Where is it located? Understanding that it neighbors Resonance. Louis Jadot, who's famous in the wine space, ended up purchasing Resonance, which is the first property he purchased in the United States. So you understood the location was important. You understood where it was at in Carlton and in the Willamette Valley, which is everything under 200 feet of elevation. And then we began to drill. We began to drill holes into the soil to kind of figure out where the volcanic soil was, what type of varietals we could grow. Where is it sloping out on the property? Do you have water rights? You kind of went through all of those things, and then I got together a group of advisors to kind of figure out strategically best case, worst case, build in some exit strategies along the way, and then figure out financially what makes sense from a building standpoint from the beginning. And we've taken it very slow. We've continued to, first of all, excavate, get rid of some of the excess trees. We left a lot of oak forest and oak trees around the property. We put in fencing. We've drilled and done some irrigation lines to kind of run from each part of the property. And we began to improve not only the nursery that's on property, but we began to improve the actual property. And we planted 7 acres a few years ago. We planted 17 acres a few months ago. And the 7 acres we actually planted will be ready to be sold in June of 2024. So we'll sell some of that acreage off and keep some of it to be made for wine down the road as a part of our estate project.
That's pretty incredible that it's already going to be ready, that soon, that you can start doing that. Looking at this partnership now, the one that you've had here for the McCollum Heritage 91 line, you've got this new rosé out. One of the questions that I posted this on social media and had some friends ask some questions too. They want to know, what is the difference between this rosé and previous iterations?
That's a great question. I think year on year, it changes based on the weather, first and foremost. I could try to make whatever I want in my head, but the amount of precipitation that you have, the cool mornings, the cool nights, the warm days, when the precipitation stops, which in Oregon you can never truly know, that's a part of what makes it different. And then I think just the final touch, the final ways in which we produce this wine make it different. I think the previous iteration was more raspberry forward. This is going to be more strawberry. It's going to be more nectarine, more rose petal. And then you look at the way it was pressed. It was whole cluster pressed, which is going to make a difference in terms of the grapes and the juice, in which the ways in which it goes into the stainless steel. The way we age it, we did 85% stainless steel and 15% in oak barrels, which is pretty much standard. But I think one of the main differences is going to be the harvest date. Because of the rain, because of the cold, because of some of the differences, the harvest date normally moves a little bit, and this harvest date was between September 27th and October 5th, which is continuing to get later and later. When I first began purchasing grapes, back in 2017, 2018, harvest used to be much earlier. Now it's continuing to get pushed further and further back, which means the bottling gets pushed further and further back, and this previous iteration was done from a bottling standpoint February 8th, I believe, of 2023.
Yeah, that's a lot of factors. I mean, the Northwest especially, with, like you said, all the rain, all the variations, there's even wildfires that come into play with that. So I'm sure it's probably an interesting process for you, just not really knowing exactly what the final product is going to be. I mean, is that kind of the case?
Yeah, it's nerve-wracking, and if you look at sports in general, I usually have a little bit of control, right? In terms of performance, make shots, miss shots, win the game, lose the game, but in 48 hours you have another game. In the wine space, in the wine business, there are a lot of determinants that you can't control. There's a lot of factors that you can't control, from fires to precipitation to late snow. And the cool part about it is you get to taste it on its journey. But the also not so cool part is that you're tasting it on its journey. And generally speaking, when you're tasting it, it's not ready yet. And then you begin to panic because you're tasting out a barrel, it hasn't been bottled yet. And you're like, well, we're 6 or 7 months out until we bottle. Like, what is this actually going to taste like? Is it going to age and develop properly? And then you begin to trust the process and learn the process and figure out ways to be comfortable not knowing the final outcome, and you have to trust the winemaker and trust that they're going to do what they're supposed to do at the end of the day, which is make great wine. And they've historically done that at Ahisdelsheim for 75 years, and I'm thankful to be partnered with them.
That sounds nerve-wracking, checking it, because it's so far out. So how often do you go out and actually taste the wine, check the barrels?
When I lived in Oregon, I would taste, so we pick the grapes, I would go through the process of being there look right after harvest normally, or right before harvest, because we normally start training camp the 3rd week of September. So I would go before or after harvest, see things, taste their things. And then I would check in a few months later, taste their things. Then I randomly get an off day around, call it November, December, whatever the case may be. and we taste through it, and then they begin sending samples to the house once I'm in the thick of season and can't make the commute. So that's kind of how we've done it historically. Now they can send me samples to Louisiana, and then when I'm in Oregon, I actually taste. When I land in Oregon, we play against the Blazers, I taste in the hotel to just check in and see how things are going. So we figured out ways to continue to handle the process accordingly, and I'm thankful that I can, still taste through wines. And with COVID, one of the positives of COVID was the ability to do Zoom more often, and we did a lot of Zoom tastings and things of that nature.
I think a lot of people did a lot of Zoom tastings in some way, shape, or form during that time. A lot of happy hours on Zoom. So talking about New Orleans, being down there now versus being up here with the wine culture that's established here, what are the biggest differences between Louisiana in the South and up here when it comes to wine?
Well, I'll start with the temperature, right? It's extremely hot, and the fact that Louisiana historically, specifically New Orleans, has a heavy French influence. So you get a lot more wines that are based from the old world that are here. There's an influx of wines being shipped in from the old world because of the amount of restaurants, the amount of places in which wine is important and prevalent. So I've had a lot of red burgundies, I've had a lot of white burgundies out here. I've been able to kind of explore French wine probably more than I have when I lived in Oregon, because obviously in Oregon you could go get, Pinot and Chard from just about any vineyard, but then you started targeting certain Chardonnays that have that white burgundy tone where it's smooth, it's soft, it still has that brightness to it and that pop where you taste it and you notice this is a different type of white wine. This isn't as bland as some of the white wines I've drank from other places. So I think that's the cool part about being in New Orleans is the food, the culture, the amount of celebrations that they have consistently every weekend. There's some type of festival, which brings out great wine, brings out a diverse group of people. And with the restaurants here, you always can taste different wine.
Well, I think that's a pretty interesting subject too, just, the different cities and different wine cultures in that. And you being in the NBA, you get to go all over the place, all over the country. And I'm sure you probably sampled wines in different cities as you go around. Looking at it from that standpoint, what are some of the best wine NBA cities?
Wow, best wine NBA cities. I'll start west. Oregon, obviously, California. So you got San Fran, you got Sacramento. There's actually a couple of wineries that I go to that have tasting rooms right by Sacramento, right in that little pocket area. When we have an off day in San Fran, it's 45 to 70 minutes to Napa or Sonoma, so that's always cool. And then go south a little bit or a lot of bit, and depending on where you're at in Houston, there's a hotel that we stay at sometimes that has a nice wine bar in the hotel where I can get a variety of different wines. There's a Somm on hand that come out and you can taste with them, so that's a cool part about being in Houston. Go a little bit further southeast, and Miami is another good city because of the food, the culture. You're able to explore usually diverse wine lists. And then east, obviously, you have New York, you got Boston, you got all those places where you can get different types of food. Philly, where you have different restaurants, different food, diverse menus. And I go to Soto in Toronto, which is an Italian restaurant that has a really good menu, wine menu. I actually went there and shot some content in partnership with Food and Wine during the season, which was nice.
Nice. Bringing up the NBA, and it seems that a lot more players are really interested in wine now. Maybe it's just because it's become more public that it's being talked about more. But what do you think it is about, NBA players and this wine culture that kind of mixes? What makes that happen?
Yeah. I think it's a combination of exposure, knowledge, comfortability. Historically, wine doesn't feel approachable. It feels uptight, it feels constraining, it feels nerve-wracking. Even me as a person who's in the space and know a fair share about wine, I feel uncomfortable at times when the Somm comes up in the suit and it's the thick wine book and you're going through and you're looking at the regions, and it can be overwhelming at times. But I think we've become more comfortable, more accustomed to ordering wine. We've learned more about it, and the cool part about wine is that it's a different journey for everybody. There's no right answer or wrong answer. You can like certain things, you can dislike certain things, and it doesn't necessarily mean that varietal, that grape that wine is bad. It just means that you don't prefer it. And I think we're getting more comfortable with that. And I think players are more comfortable with associating themselves with alcohol, which was frowned upon for us for quite some time. And now wine is more socially acceptable in today's society.
Who are some of your other fellow NBA players that are as big into wine as you are?
Well, you guys had one of them for a little bit, Josh Hart. He likes wine a lot. He explores it. JJ, who's now retired, loves wine. Bron, who's not retired yet, enjoys wine. Kevin Love, I think he's partnered with Chosen Family. Channing Fryer, who's retired, they have partnered together and have wine. Mo Harkless, who former Portland Trail Blazers, done some really cool stuff with Prisoner. I think the Currys have a wine. Some other players throughout the league. D-Wade, who's retired, has his own wine as well. So there's like you said, a diverse group of guys who are getting involved in wine and learning about it and getting more comfortable in the space. Really, Isaiah Thomas, another retired player who has champagne and some other wines. I
think that's really interesting, your comment there. It's become more approachable because it really has. It's the marketing of wine, the understanding of it, just as a whole, has certainly changed, it feels like, over the last several years. So that makes sense that it would be reflected in that way. Got to ask, though, with all those players, who has the best palate out of all the NBA players?
Melo has a really good palate. I didn't even mention Melo. Melo has his own wine as well. He just released Seventh Estate. And they're older than me, man. So I would say they have more. Their palate has more mileage. A lot of those guys, they got more mileage of traveling and trying different wines, more years of drinking certain wines. But I'd say my palate is pretty good. My palate is up there for sure. I've tasted through a lot of wines and continue to strategically taste certain wines depending on the year to kind of learn better about what I like and why I like it. But I would say I got a top 5 palate in the league for sure. But I would say Greg Popovich, who also has his own wine in partnership with an Oregon Vineyard, he has the elite palate, and he signed off on McCollum Harris 91 and said that it was a wine he enjoyed and wouldn't mind purchasing, which is a big compliment.
From Popovich, that's pretty impressive right there. And also like the competitor in you that you've already put yourself in the top 5 regardless.
Top 5.
So. Well, looking at your event coming up here, let's talk about this release again for anybody who wants to come out. Like, what kind of experience do you want to give somebody, or what can they expect when they come out to this event on June 3rd?
They can expect a great environment, an engaged environment where we're just pouring, tasting through wines, enjoying life, enjoying what Oregon has to offer, which this time of year is sunshine, cooler nights, great afternoons, some food. I'll actually be pouring through some wines outside of the rosé. I'll be pouring some Chardonnay, and I'll be pouring some Pinot as well. The Chardonnay will be from the McCollum Harris 91 collection. I'll be signing some food and wine books that I'm featured in alongside Chef Joy, who's also featured in it, and she's the personal chef for my home. She actually put a meal in there that we enjoy along with the recipe, and has some pictures in there. So I'll be signing and giving some of those out, and it'll just be a cool, interactive environment. This is the first time I've done a meet and greet in general for wine, and obviously I had to do it in Oregon. So I'm excited. The admission is consistent of pre-ordering 3 bottles of
there it is,
the McCollum Harris 91 Rosé. I'll let you get up close. This is a 2022 100% Pinot Noir grapes, and I'm excited, man. I'm really excited to get back to Oregon, to not have to play a game while I'm there against the Blazers, and to be able to enjoy nature, the peace and tranquility that comes with being in wine country.
Well, CJ, Oregon always welcomes you back here, and congratulations, on this latest release and just your whole journey into this separate thing of doing wine, being an entrepreneur, your level of knowledge in it. Obviously, you want to be very, very well versed and good in this field, and it sounds like you certainly are. So, congratulations. Thanks for spending some time with us too. Really, really appreciate it. And
no problem.
Any final words you want to give to anybody who might want to pick up one of your bottles?
No, I think it's important that we continue to figure out what we like and what we don't like, and the only way to do that is to try different wines, and this is a wine I definitely think you'll gravitate towards. If you like fruit, if you like freshness, if you enjoy nice, warm summer days, you will enjoy drinking not only the McCollum Harris 91 Rosé, but some of the other wines we have to offer as well, and that's $33. You can get it at McCollumHarris91.com. You can pick it up at Ahisdelsheim Monday through Friday from 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. So you don't have to worry about shipping if you're local.
Fantastic. CJ, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, there we go. CJ McCollum right here on Fox 12 Now. That was pretty cool to get to talk to him. I love the fact that he ranks himself in the top 5, but he said Popovich is #1 in palette, which, you know, you would expect that that would be the case. But again, this is Fox 12 Now. I'm Greg Nibbler. I appreciate you joining us. I say that a lot because I mean it. Wherever it is you're finding us, whether that's on our streaming apps, which if you don't have them, download those, whether you're on Roku or Fire TV or Apple TV, just look for Fox 12 Oregon. So find us on there. And of course, we're on YouTube as well. So for our Fox 12 Oregon YouTube page, go to the live section and you can find all of the interviews that we've had, which are myriad. That was a good word to throw in there at the end. There are a lot of different videos on there, a lot of different coverage of stories you may see here on Fox 12 Oregon. Sometimes they're interviews that may not be on the air, but we get to talk in depth on there. So lots of things to check out. And we're live here every weekday at 1 p.m. and appreciate you being here today. And again, thanks to CJ for joining us for that. All right, that is it for today. I will talk to you tomorrow. I'm Greg Nibbler. This is Fox 12 Now.